Hello, my name is Mary Ellen King, President of the Austin Bar Association, and this is another episode of the Stop the Stigma podcast, an initiative of the Austin Bar Association to change the narrative around discussions of mental health, substance abuse, and suicide awareness in the legal profession. Today, we have Judge Deborah Wigington from County Court at Law Number 3 in New Braunfels. Good afternoon, Judge.
Good afternoon.
Thank you so much for joining us. I met you recently at the Texas State Bar Leaders Conference. I remember we were in the TLAP presentation, and we were talking about, in general, I guess my question has always been, and it still is, I worry so much about it because I have lost friends to suicide, is how do you know, well, you do know when people are typically contemplating if you're very close to them. But what can we do to try to help them? Because I feel helpless a lot of times. And your answer to that question was?
Well, the first thing would be know that you have 988 as an option. 988 is a nationwide number. It is kind of like 911, meaning it is nationwide and can get immediate assistance. You can text it, you can call it. It is 24 hours a day for a live person who will answer. You can call it if you just need to talk to somebody. You can call it if you need to get resources for yourself, for a friend, for a family member, for a colleague. You can call it if you are in crisis. You can call it if you need placement, like you need a hospitalization for a family member, for yourself, a colleague, a friend, and they will help connect you with a local resource. So that's the first thing. And I tell people, you don't have to wait until there's an emergency. It's not like 911 where you have to wait for an emergency. You're going to get in trouble if you call, if it's an emergency. If it's not an emergency, you can call and practice calling. If you're someone who knows that late at night, that's when it gets dangerous for you. You can practice calling in the morning and just see what it feels like to call. And that's what I try to tell people to do. If you're not sure how you're going to feel calling late at night, call in the morning and just see who answers and how it feels when you call, and who will answer and how that conversation goes so that you do feel safe when you call at night, when you do need to talk to somebody. Nobody's going to get mad. Nobody's going to get upset. And sometimes you just need someone to talk you through that night to get you to the morning. That number's there. If you don't want to talk to somebody, you can always text somebody. So that number is there, and that's a good starting point, always available for people. Everybody knows about TLAP. I think every single conference we go to, they talk about that. They talk about I think there's the endowment, the funds that are available to pay for services for attorneys, for judges. I think there's even for our secretarial and paralegal staff. They provide funding for that as well. So there's lots of options out there. And then there's additional options where if you have a client, if you have a loved one, if you have a colleague that needs extra help and they're not willing to take those steps, there are processes like an emergency warrant process, emergency detention, or an order of protective custody that you can do through the court process.
Oh, nice. So when we were afterwards, I walked up to you and I said, I just love that answer. Tell me more about you. And you tell me that so County Court at Law Number 3 in New Braunfels, is that a mental health court?
So it's actually a general jurisdiction court.
Okay.
So we handle all the regular things a court can handle. We do family law, we do misdemeanor criminal work, we do probate, juvenile, civil, and we also do mental health. But I established also a mental health court that has a civil track as well as a criminal track. It's supposed to be created as a diversionary program to divert people out of the criminal justice system. And then we've also now began a juvenile track to both do diversionary out of the juvenile justice system. And we provide supervision for pretrial for both adults and juveniles so that they could be released either on conditions of bond or on release from detention. And we supervise and give more intensive supervision while they're on conditions of release or on bond.
Oh, very cool. How long have y'all been doing the mental health court?
We first established at the very end of 2021. I took the bench in January 2021. We formally established the court at the very end of 2021, and we brought our first participants in 2022. I'd say we really got rolling in 2023 and then brought in the juveniles, I think probably the beginning of 2024 or end of 2023. And I'd say we've seen the most success with our juveniles. That's where you really see the progress and see some really great things happening.
Awesome. I mean, I kind of feel like that's when they probably need the most help. And the one thing we've talked about is just through the bar association and through these courts and through TLAP, there don't let financial resources be what's a roadblock to getting help. There's plenty of ways to get help for juveniles, for adults that are suffering a mental health crisis. Do you know statistics at all? Like how many people you have come through the mental health court, adults in the last 2 to 3 years?
I don't. I know that there are more than we can serve, though. We have to cap it at some point because we can't serve everybody who needs the service. There are more that need to be served. We only have so much time in the day to be able to hear them. We try to give so much individualized attention to each person as they come through. And I will tell you, as compared to the other specialty courts, mental health court takes up a little more time with each individual participant because you really do get to know their stories, you get to know their family, and some of their diagnoses take a little more time to get involved and let them tell their story. And so each time they come in, you hear a lot.
Yeah. So with the people that come through the court, I'm sorry, I'm going to ask these may be silly or dumb questions, but I just want to understand. So the people that come through the court, have they been previously diagnosed, or do y'all help also? I mean, obviously you don't because you're a judge like me. We're not qualified to do that, but we can help them find resources to be diagnosed. How does that work?
Sure. So we actually have a team that sits on our court panel. And so part of that is our local mental health authority, which I think it may actually be yours too, which is the Hill Country MHDD. And Hill Country MHDD does all the evaluations for our participants unless they have a prior diagnosis already. And sometimes we still want them to get reviewed by Hill Country MHDD because we ask that they provide services through them. If they have a doctor that they're already comfortable with, sometimes we can work within that so that if they'll sign releases so we can confirm care and a treatment plan. But it's really easy since they sit on our team so we can confirm treatment, confirm that they're taking their medications or receiving their medications. Our local mental health authorities sitting on our team, the great thing about that is they can set up appointments from our team staffings. So weekly, when we have a staffing and someone comes in, at that time they can say, okay, your next appointment's going to be this date. And if they say, hey, we called and they said they can't get us in to see a provider or a doctor for a psychiatric visit for 3 months, they can go, nope, we got you in for next week.
Oh, that's wonderful because that's one of the other problems is if once you find care and you can find affordable care, being able to get in. And when you're in the middle of a crisis, you really need to get in quickly, right?
Absolutely. Also, I will tell you, our Hill Country MHD, and I think especially most major metropolitan cities. So I'm sure Austin has it, and I think most of the small ones even have it now as a mobile crisis outreach team or some equivalent, which is a crisis intervention team that can be mobilized to a scene. They are 24 hours a day. Should have a response number where you can call 24 hours a day. Say somebody is in crisis, we need assistance. Usually you can call 988 and they hook you up with that crisis mobilization team. And so that's when we say if you are in crisis, if you call 988, they can get you in touch with someone local to assist you. That crisis mobilization team is the team that can come and assist you immediately if you need that assistance. That does not mean if you call 988, they are going to send somebody to your home. It doesn't mean that if you are in crisis, they're going to take you to a hospital or anything like that. Their plan is a safety plan every single time. And the statistics show that, 90% of the time they can safety plan. That's the whole thing is we want to make sure you're safe.
And they want to de-escalate,
Right.
not
That's
escalate.
essentially what they do is they
Right.
say, do you have a support system? Who can we call to come stay with you tonight? Can we make sure that there's no firearms in your home? Can we make sure that you don't have a plan tonight that you're going to hurt yourself? And essentially just making sure you're safe to get through the night and you have a plan tomorrow where you're going to be cared for. And then what are your treatment plans going to be from here on out? So because we have these people sitting on our team, we can immediately get them care. Our local MHD also has a pharmacy. They can provide medications to our participants, usually at extremely discounted, if not free, for the participants. So that's how they're able to get the care and the services they need.
Oh, wow. And that is incredible. And so I didn't realize that that was available. Once they go into the system, then they have people walking alongside with them to make sure they're going to their appointments and make sure they're taking their medication. Is that right?
I know MHDD, our Hill Country, has what's called care coordinators, and they are like basically your navigators through the process. They are assigned to be your person, your point of contact. They help you make appointments. They check in with you. They help you with skills training. They're the person with, hey, I don't know that I'm getting along with this therapist. Well, let me find you another therapist on board. I don't know that this medication is the right medication. Let me make you an appointment with the nurse so we can review that. They're basically your concierge for your experience with MHTD. So it's really a great service. And they have all kinds of services that I had no idea that a local, mental health authority could provide. Some pretty in-depth services
People
that
don't know about.
right, are pretty specialized,
Yeah.
and it's pretty amazing, because I know sometimes they get a bad rap, but, it's hard to navigate and hard to wade, but once you can get in, and if you can find those avenues through, there are some really great services, and with those crisis mobilization teams and through that 9-8, usually they have grant programs so that if you go through that process and if they do place you in a hospitalization, grant programs will cover the cost of that hospitalization for you, so you don't have to worry about a big hospital bill when you get out.
Oh, nice.
That's one of the other benefits.
That's very nice. Okay, so tell me again. You said civil and criminal. So a civil would be sort of a civil commitment. How does we don't want to give anybody legal advice, but let's just explain because I don't really know anything about it. That's what I'm asking you. But how does that work? Walk us through that, how it works on the civil commitment side.
So that's essentially like an assisted outpatient treatment program, where, for example, if we had someone who had to go into care on an order of protection or emergency detention order of protection, and they're recommending extended inpatient services. If we said, you know what, maybe they don't need the extended inpatient services, but maybe we could do some assisted outpatient. We're going to order them to participate in extended outpatient services. It's voluntary. They don't actually have to do it. It's going to be an order, but if they choose not to do it, they don't have to do it. But it's basically supervised by the court for like a 3-month process where they come check in with us. We're making sure they're getting their medications. We're making sure they're getting their appointments. And it's really just us facilitating and making sure that they're getting all their needs met. We make sure that if they have other needs, they have food needs, they have housing needs, do they have other things, other resources in our community that we can hook them up to. And it's more like just making sure that they have everything they need before we kick them out into the world on their own.
Help them get back on track.
Right.
Yeah, that's great. And then talk to me about the criminal side. How do you get referrals on the criminal side? Because are you a criminal court?
We do criminal
Okay.
courts, yes.
And so how does that work? Like, does a judge refer them to you or to the mental health court?
So we get them from all different places. They can be referred in from our magistrate, who gets them through the jail. They can get flagged. Law enforcement brings them in on our intake booking sheet. There's a little line that we added that says mental health concerns noted. And so when law enforcement brings them on the booking sheet, they can check the box and write their concerns. And so the magistrate can then send the sheet in and send them over to us as a referral. They can be sent in as a referral from the district attorney's office when they review the case. Defense attorneys can refer their clients in. Family members can refer their clients in. Sometimes MHCD refers their clients in.
Oh,
They'll say, hey,
wow.
we have this patient who has these pending charges, and we really think they need to be in mental health court. So we can get them from all different places.
So was this your vision or that to do this? And if so, where did it come from? And is it modeled after another jurisdiction? And what did you have to do to get started?
So there's actually it wasn't my vision.
Okay.
So when I got before I even took the bench, Judge Stevens, who's one of our other county court at law judges, he was already approaching me, going, "We need this mental health court." This had been his dream for a while, and we also have a Commissioner Donna Eccleston, who she has been a champion for mental health in Comal County for a very long time. And both of them were approaching me, going, "Please, please, please, we want this mental health court." And I didn't know anything about mental health other than my children have some neurodiversity in mental health. That's the extent of what I knew about mental health, and I was learning through them. And so I'm like, well, I mean, okay, I've jumped into things before. Let's jump into this. And then I will tell you, we have the Judicial Commission on Mental Health. It is a fantastic program. If you haven't looked into it, they have some great seminars. They have the Judicial Summit on Mental Health is coming up in November. It's actually a free conference. The The program is completely free. I think they have it online available also. If you they don't pay for the hotel and all that, but the program is free and it has some outstanding programs that go along with that. If you can still get signed up for that, but they do wonderful trainings. They have trainings just on how to set up a mental health court. They also have what's called a SIM mapping, which is a sequential intercept mapping, where essentially they get together with communities and they say, let's look at what resources are in your communities and what are the gaps in your communities. And they go all the way from pre-arrest. Let's look at where we are pre-arrest, at contact with law enforcement, arrest, interactions in the jail, interactions with the district attorney's office, court, probation, release from prison or prison, release from prison, or reentry, and what do we have and what are we missing? And they invite all the stakeholders in the community to come in and say, this is what we can offer in each of those places. And then they say, what are our gaps and what are our dreams for our community? And then they do an entire map for you of what you can do. And then they make recommendations. And they have been instrumental in our community in helping us fill those gaps and find out what we can do. And part of that was our mental health court and setting everything up. And in fact, then they came in and did a youth mapping for us and helped us with the juvenile. So they've been, and it's open to, I'm sure Austin has done one. But it is open if people from other communities are watching. It's open to anybody who wants to sign up to do it. They will come do them in your community.
As I'm thinking, a lot of times people, when they're going through a mental health crisis, especially if they're contemplating suicide, they feel like nobody cares and they're not alone. What I'm thinking here is like, wow, this is an entire community coming together because they care. So I think that's so important. And the messaging here is make sure if someone's listening who is struggling, is there's resources all around and people who are trying to make sure that, your needs are met and that you know you're not alone. So that's great. Um, What's some other things you want to tell us about the court?
I have learned there are so many different treatments out there for depression that I had no idea about. I historically thought you go to therapy, right? You take medication, you go to therapy. And I think that's one of the misconceptions about depression. I think that's one of the big scary things about depression is that some people have tried that and it hasn't worked. And that's what is so hard is they say, I tried therapy, I tried depression, it didn't work, and I can't keep living this way. And so that's, I think, part of what happens. And they just feel hopeless. There are so many advances. I know now we have these ketamine treatments, and we have I'm going to totally get it wrong, but the rapid eye movement therapy. And science is progressing so quickly right now in how to treat this. And it's such a hot button issue right now. And legislation is so focused and they're throwing money at mental health
Oh,
in
that's
all different
wonderful,
areas.
right?
I am so excited about it. Like they really are. This is the thing that everybody's looking at and going, we've got to do something. And so there's so much focus on it that I think we're going to have huge advances in science. So for those people who really are thinking, I just don't have that hope right now because I've tried things and they just haven't worked, hang in there. Like science is changing things every day. So give science the chance to catch up because things are changing and there's stuff out there that is in development that maybe the things you've tried haven't worked, but there's new things that are coming out every day that might work. So if you can just hang on each day, right? Give it a chance to catch up, that there is hope in sight.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't know about some of those. Um, Talk to me about when someone comes in and they go through your program. When you were saying around 3 months, I was thinking like what you're really doing is teaching them how to get into healthy habits. That are self care, healthy self care habits. That some people just don't have the tools or have a hard time staying on track. Once they get into that sort of habits and taking their medicine and seeing the therapist and finding the food they need and all the other resources, what happens then? Do they graduate? Do they receive a certificate, or how does someone finish the mental health program?
We do. We have a graduation party for them. They do get a certificate. And then we try to follow up with them. So we have a mental health coordinator. And he follows up. We also have on our team two different mental health officers, one from our local police department and one from our sheriff's office because they have different jurisdictions. They also do follow-ups with all of our mental health participants so that they can keep eyes and ears on the situation. They like relationship building because they know they're going to encounter people out in the world, and they want to know that they feel safe with them and they know what they're going through.
I love
I
that.
know, because it all is community building. And so they want that person, if they do get a call out, to know that they're there as a friend and someone that knows what's happening with them, and they're not there as someone who's there to do
Arrest them.
anything dangerous to them. And so that's part of it, is they check in with them, make sure they're doing okay. Our local MHDD also does outreach in the communities. They go out and check on them. Hey, if you haven't been into the clinic lately, you haven't been picking up your meds, I'm going to go find you. If you're homeless, I'm going to go to your camp. I'm going to bring your medicine to your camp, and I'm going to make sure you take it.
I love that.
So, sometimes it doesn't work, right? We get repeat people who don't take their meds. It happens. But you just keep trying.
That's one of I think the tough things about mental health in general. People take their medicines and they start feeling better and they think they don't need them anymore. And then you get right back into your crisis, or what they call a messy middle, and then you have to get back on them. So that's great. I guess for me, I just didn't realize all these resources were out there. I kind of felt that I feel like at one point we did a really good job. I'm 47 years old, so I'll say my age on here, but we did a really good job when I was younger of taking care of people who had mental health issues. And I feel like as a country, as a community, everything, we moved away from that. But it sounds like the pendulum is swinging in the other direction. And now we're going to start really focusing on it.
I really think we are. And I think part of it is because we are reducing the stigma. We're talking about it again. I think the generation who's in college now and the generation younger than them are talking about mental health in a way that, frankly, our generation didn't. I know my daughter was on the phone with her friends, and I could hear them, and they're talking about their different mental health medications that they took. And I was thinking, that's so cool that they feel comfortable enough with each other that it's like commonplace. They're like, oh yeah, I took this and blah, 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 blah. And it was no big deal. Um, and I think that's great. And I think that's the way it should be, because mental health's health. If your friend broke their leg, you would call them and go, hey, I know you broke your leg. Let me come pick you up and get you to work. If your friend had depression and you know they're struggling to get out of bed and get to work, you should call them and go, hey, I know you've been struggling with depression. Can I come pick you up and make sure you get to work today? It's the same thing. It's health. And that reaching out might be the thing that gets that person out of bed that day, and helps them.
We had someone on the podcast recently. I loved her analogy. She talked about how we all have allergies in Central Texas. And she said, when we'll come into a meeting, y'all, I'm sorry, my allergies are so bad. I've taken medication, it's bad today. And she goes, we should do the same thing for mental health. Like, I'm not feeling good today and I'm doing everything to try to feel good. And it's not working. Today's just a bad day, and that's okay. I think, too, in this profession, at least in the legal profession, I feel like, and I've talked about this a little bit with others, that I feel like there's such a pressure to be perfect or to be infallible, and I laugh when people do put lawyers on a pedestal. They do. We are seen as leaders in the community, but at the end of the day, we're just human like everyone else, right? We have our struggles. That's why we're here. We have a lot of people in the legal profession who struggle with mental health. We have a lot of people in the legal profession who struggle with substance abuse, and then of course we have people who contemplate suicide. Are these options you're talking about? Are they also open to professionals and legal professionals and legal community?
100%.
So they don't exclude anyone.
No. And I'll tell you, the same thing you said that applies to lawyers, it applies to judges. Like we are all those things too. I promise you, there are judges on the bench who struggle with the exact same things. I can get up here all day long and say everything is beautiful and happy. My house is a mess. My kid was probably tardy to school today. I took anxiety medication this morning because I knew I had to come talk here today. Like it's, everybody has good days, bad days, and has things going on in their lives.
Yeah, that's what I just love. And that's why I want to do this, is to change the narrative. I tell everybody, I want people to feel comfortable talking about it, talking about their struggles. I want people who receive it to feel comfortable and to be able to recognize when people may need help and what to do, which was where this conversation started. I've talked about, maybe if you're in the law office, or even, even as a judge, maybe you notice your staff just kind of stop answers emails, or doesn't come into the office as much, or doesn't return calls. Something's usually going on with them personally that maybe we should check in. And sometimes all it is a call to check in. And then if you're not sure what to say, then, there's TLAP, and you can call TLAP's number, and it's 100% confidential, and they can help guide you through what to say to someone else. And the same for if you think somebody's contemplating suicide, the 988, call them, tell them your loved one or friend or coworker or whatever you believe is contemplating suicide, and they can walk you through what to say.
And I'm sure you've probably all already heard it. If you've not heard it, asking somebody about suicide or bringing suicide up to somebody will not encourage them to do it.
That's right.
It will not put the idea in their head. So don't ever think, hey, if I say, are you thinking about suicide? That's not going to make them think, oh, now I should go do it. Like, bring it up, ask them those questions. If you don't want to say the word suicide, say, are you having scary thoughts of hurting yourself? Or are where are you right now? Say something though. Don't just ignore it. It's just, and I will say one of the things that I think is most important is I think the idea of therapy, everybody thinks therapy is one of those things that you do when you have a lot of trauma in your life, or you had,
I go every week.
and I think that I tell people in my court all the time, I think everybody should be in therapy.
I do too. I do too.
And I think that's one thing that everybody's scared to admit, that they go to therapy. And I like to explain it because I always encourage my people I put on probation. Have you ever been in therapy? I think you should go to therapy. And a lot of my guys like, I'm not mentally ill. I'm like, it's not for mental illness.
It's for mental wellness.
Right. And I try to explain what skills training is, part of it is building skills, and it's like muscle memory. Like if you played sports and you shot a basketball over and over and over again, why did you do that? It's so that when you get on the field, or when you get on the court, and you've got people cheering and people coming at you trying to knock the ball out of your hand, and everything's going crazy around you, your muscles just know to shoot the right way. And so that's the same with life. If you're doing therapy and you are training your brain how to handle a situation and how to calm yourself down, when you get into a stressful situation and life is crazy all around you, your brain is just going to know how to work and calm you down immediately. And you don't have to worry about everything going around you. So, and it's funny how people will react better when you go, oh, well, you're just training yourself. It's not really therapy.
It is true. And recognizing your own triggers and the things that make you get off balance, because the reality is, everybody wishes life was just baseline and happy-go-lucky all the time, but it's just not. Things come and happen to us that are hard. I was in a meeting one time, and I remember another board member said, I've just not had any trauma in my life. And I thought, knock on wood, because it's only, grief is a part of life, losing people, loss of a marriage, or loss of parents, or whatever. And that can throw some serious roadblocks in your way. But therapy is such a good tool to put into your toolbox. They give you lots of tools. I agree. I've been seeing my therapist for a very long time. And I started seeing her when I was going through a personal crisis, because one of my loved ones was an alcoholic, and he died in November 2023. And today I'm in a much better place, but and when he died in November of 2023, that therapy and that exercising those emotional muscles and the way to, self-care and healthy coping and healthy self-care got me through it. A lot of people said, I don't know how you're still going. And granted, there were some days where I'm not really sure. Right. But that's what therapy does, is it helps you figure out how to keep going and how to keep moving when life throws you curveballs. What's something else you would tell somebody that's thinking about starting a mental health court, maybe in a smaller jurisdiction that doesn't have one?
And that question has come up a lot in our, I was on a mentor panel for courts interested in doing it. And they said, well, I don't have grant funding. I don't know. I don't have the forms to do it. I don't know what to do. I said, you just have to do it. Like, I don't have any funding. You don't need funding. You just, I'll email you the forms, and I'll give y'all my email. Anybody who wants my email can have it. I'll send my forms out to anybody who wants them. You just set it up. There's paperwork your commissioner's court will sign. That starts it, and then you just do it. And right, you just do it. You jump in, you're gonna make mistakes. We're actually this Monday having a powwow round table where we're getting the whole team together to say, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? What are we changing? What can we adapt to make it better? Because we're getting growing pains, and I think we can improve stuff. And I think that's what you do is you just jump in, and then change as you go.
Right. I mean, that's kind of like therapy, right?
Right.
Nobody's perfect. So you're going to try to improve yourself and the way you deal with things. Um, Interesting. Another thing that came to my mind when you were talking is, we talk about the confidentiality. Let's say somebody wanted to come to your court and watch mental health court. Is that something they can do, or is mental health court confidential?
So staffing, where we actually talk about diagnoses, treatment plans, those kind of things, that is confidential. Nobody can come. That courtroom is locked. When we do the actual court, we don't talk about those things. That's when we just talk about general stuff. How are you progressing? We don't talk about your diagnosis. We don't talk about your medications or any protected health information. That is open because you have open courts.
Oh, nice. So that's if somebody's thinking about going through that process, either civil or criminally, then they should know that's also confidential for them. They're not going to air, their mental health issues or whatever they're dealing with at that time out in public court.
Correct. And even for our staffings, we have anyone who comes through our staffings and all people on our team sign non disclosure agreements as well.
So, what are some of the things that you've found or you've seen help people other than, we talked about therapy and medication, but what's some of the things that you've seen have helped people that have come through your court do or change their life, actions that they take day to day that may have changed their course?
So, one of the things we do actually in our court, every single time somebody comes in, is goal setting. No matter what we do, we come up with usually at least three goals. One of them is usually set by the court staff, our team. We usually let them pick a goal, and then we tell them they can be short term goals, long term goals, uh, usually treatment, and if they're on probation, probation related, and then something they just want to do. With our adult participants, it has been maybe it's getting your birth certificate from the clerk's office because they need to get their ID. It could be making sure you took your meds every single day this week. Um, Going and making sure you hit therapy or making your AA meetings all five days this week. Um, but making sure you have goals that you're going to do and then come back in and report into us the next week. Did you make your goals? And then we do rewards and um, eh, incentives and sanctions. For our juveniles, we do things like we had one girl who wanted to learn to play guitar, and she did it. She came and put on a concert for us at the end when she graduated.
Oh,
And
that's so
a
cool.
lot of those are getting their driver's license, and we had one kid who finished his high school diploma while he was not his diploma, but he got his GED
GD.
while he was in our program, and it's really cool to see them getting things done as they one of ours was scared to leave her house. She had some severe phobias. And so it was today, let's see if we can get you to drive around the block. That's it. Get out of your house and drive around the block. And then it was, do you have a trusted friend whose house you can go to? You don't have to go anywhere in public. Just go to her house. Just baby stepping it out so you can feel safe and as part of her treatment plan. So just little baby steps with a long-term goal of getting healthier and progressing in life.
Do y'all see, can someone with a substance abuse issue come through your court, or do they need to have uh, a, a sort of an underlying mental health condition as well?
Ours is pretty exclusively mental health. It is really hard since ours are misdemeanors to treat the substance abuse just because of the lack of resources that we have available. Our mental health authority does have what's called a COPS-D program that does a co-occurring substance use disorder program where they can treat both substance misuse and mental health. So we do have that we can utilize, and there's some intensive outpatient programs that we can use. But if it's a severe addiction issue, that's really hard for us to treat as well.
You said you have more people than you can serve. So what happens to the people that you can't serve? Like they have to go through their criminal prosecution process without mental health assistance.
We do have there's a mental health track through probation where they can still get mental health services. They still have um, special programs that they can receive. And they do have what's called an OSAR evaluation where they can get funding to be able to get special assistance through that program.
So it's not that they can't get help. They just can't come through and have this special team of resource officers, is what I'd call it, really, from all the different organizations.
And we do have my mental health coordinator's office is actually publicly available in the back of our courtroom. And so when we have people come through, even if they don't want to come into my court, I have people who would say, I'd rather just do time served. I've been in jail for X number of days, and I know they've been arrested for criminal trespass 25 times. And I'll just tell them, okay, you understand. If you ever need anything, if you want the referral to this place, if you need this, just come see Lewis. We'll get you that referral. Come stop on by. We're always here Monday through Friday from 8 to 5,
So it sounds like a lot of your people may be repeat offenders sometimes. Is that common?
The ones that come through our court, that's the program is we try to keep them from being repeat offenders. Okay. And prevent recidivism. And that's the goal, is that we don't have them come back through. So far we've had one who ended up, he's on his second run. He got a new offense while he was in. He's doing so well. And I am so proud of him. Like, he came in honest, and that's what we asked for. We're like, you need to be accountable. You need to be honest. Because that's the only way we can, really get in there. And he was accountable. He was honest. Came in crying. Amazing. This kid is just a good-hearted kid. And has just made amazing progress. The difference when he first came in to the person he is now is just, I think he's going to make it.
Oh, that's awesome. I think too, when people are honest about their vulnerabilities and their, maybe their mental illness or their substance abuse or whatever, it sort of erases the shame and stigma associated with it. And they realize that there's so many people who would stop what they're doing and help them. That's what we're doing here. You and I want to help people and want people to know, and there's so many other people like us who are standing in the wings waiting to help people. So that's great news.
That's what we try to do, is when we do our courts, I don't do it from the bench. We put our tables in a square 4-table little pattern on the floor. And we all sit together. I have my participants sit right beside me. I wear a robe, but I wear it open. So we try to make it as informal, but still have that I am the judge, and make them understand that we are there for them. When they graduate, I try to, so what do you want as your graduation? I try to let them pick a food. So I've had requests, would you bake me a cake of this? And I've baked them a cake, and I am not a cook. But I'm like, I will bake you a cake.
So you make no guarantees about the way it tastes, right?
You want a pizza? I'm trying to suggest things. My last one, he said, I would like asparagus. Deadpan. And I'm like, I will go buy you asparagus because I'm not cooking it. But he had asparagus. But yeah, they're really fun.
That's really sweet because, I'm a civil litigator, and court can be intimidating for people who go in it all the time. So it's important that when they're going into a court where they are receiving help to overcome something they're maybe ashamed about, that they don't have that, fear.
And I think that is, there's two ways to inspire change. I can inspire it through fear that you don't want to come back and see me in this courtroom because I will put you in jail, or you don't want to come back in this courtroom because you will disappoint me because I've put so much love and attention into making you into a better person. And I hope that that's what they see, is that I've put so much love and attention into making them into a better person that they don't want to come back and disappoint me.
Honestly, having walked along with people who are struggling with mental health, issues and substance abuse issues, so many times they feel like they're not lovable. And all you have to do is show them love. Now, I'm not saying that's gonna help the situation or make them better. They need to do everything else, but it's certainly making sure they understand they're worthy. Is there anything you're doing today that you think you would do differently in the mental health court? Or maybe you wish you had more resources to do something?
I do. And that's one of the things that we are currently working on with the Judicial Council on Mental Health, is looking into the substance misuse. There is legislation that allows for mental health warrants for substance misuse, that if you use a substance to the point that you are a danger to yourself or others, there can be a warrant issued and taken to a rehab facility. But nobody knows how to use it. It's kind of this nebulous legislation out there that just isn't used because nobody really knows how to use it, where the funding to pay for that, rehab is. What do we do with it? There's judges who are looking at like, what can we do? So, there's committees being formed. How could we use this? What could we do with it? And I wish that there was funding for us to be able to help those who are using at a point that they can't stop themselves anymore, and it is causing severe mental health issues, because it's that chicken or the egg. Is the mental health causing the substance use, or is the substance use causing the mental health at this point? And sometimes I get mental health warrants that I can't tell which is which, and I'm not allowed to issue mental health warrants under the mental health statute for substance abuse. And that's really hard. Um, and it's really hard to turn somebody down when they come and say, I'm afraid something horrible is going to happen to my loved one if you don't help me. And I say, under the law, I can't help you. And that's really, really hard.
Because rehab, I have experience with rehab is extremely expensive. Um, Almost like a full commitment into a hospital for a mental health hold. I mean, it's the really good ones are $30,000 for 20 days.
Mhm.
So it's definitely cost prohibitive. But there are some other options where they're not as expensive and they're just as good. But it's good to know that there are resources out there. Do you have any advice for attorneys? Do you typically have attorneys helping individuals through your court? And if so, what advice do you have for attorneys that are helping individuals suffering a mental health crisis come through your mental health court?
We do. We have assigned, we have 2 defense attorneys who sit on our team. They are the most patient people on earth. And it takes patience. It takes the right kind of heart to have a heart for people with mental illness. It's not easy, um, but it's very worthwhile to see the results. When you see someone who walks in and the confusion and the state that they start in and is able to walk out functioning at a whole nother level, it's amazing. And know that you had a hand in doing that.
How did you find your 2 attorneys?
Both of them, I think, just volunteered and said, hey, I hear you're doing this. Can I help?
Other than not being able to provide services to everyone that comes through the court, what are some of the other challenges you face?
I would say the substance misuse issues. That's very hard. Medication compliance and not being able to prove if they are being compliant or not being compliant. A lot of these medications don't show up on a drug test, so you can't tell if they're really being compliant or not compliant other than their behaviors. And so you can say, I don't think you've been taking your meds. And they can go, I'm taking my meds. Do I want to see your pill bottle? And they're like, here's my pill bottle. And you're thinking, you probably flushed your meds down the toilet. Because I don't think you're taking your meds. But there's really no way you can verify if they are or not. And that's really hard.
I guess after a while, you start figuring individuals out when they're telling the truth and when they're not telling the truth when they come back in front of you. Is that right?
It is, because you get to know them. And you're thinking, it's not normal behavior for you. But it's hard to sanction someone when you can't prove it. You can't. And so you just have to go, okay. And that's really hard.
Yeah. If there was one thing you could change about society and the way it currently views and deals with mental health, what would that be?
I would say one of the biggest things is we change how we deal with it, and at the medication level, not medication, at the medical level. I think we need to start viewing it as we do, for example, heart attacks. If you go into your doctor's office and go for a physical, they screen you for all the different things, and they take personal histories. And if you mention anything about heart issues, they're on it. They're screening you for every single thing they can think of. And when you walk out of there, if you have any history of heart issues or any concerns whatsoever about heart issues, before you can get to your car, and sometimes before you get to your house, you have someone from a cardiologist's office calling you and making appointments for you. And then you're getting into that place. And then if there's any issue with that, they're getting you into the next person, and there's someone shepherding you through all the processes. And it used to be that you died from a heart attack and you knew you had a heart problem when you did die. Now people aren't dying from heart attacks anymore because they're catching them so early. And I think we could get there with mental health if we're screening for it like we screen for heart attacks. Yeah. When you go in for your wellness checks, you're checking family histories. If you have any concerns about that, we're referring you over to therapists. We're referring you over to a psychiatrist and psychologist. We're going to make those appointments for you and have you into those offices. We're going to have those people contacting you and making sure you follow up with them. And then from there, we're going to make sure you get in your medications. We're going to get everything set up for you and following up on all that care. And I think if we treated it like a heart attack, we would have less people dying from mental health.
Sort of like the intake form. What's your weight? What's your height? Did your parents have cancer? Do your siblings have cancer? Have they had cancer? The same thing, ask for the depression questions, the anxiety questions, the suicidal thought questions. And you can generally if people are honest, you'll get a good indication of where they are on the scale, on all those scales. That's great. And what would you tell somebody that maybe has a family member who's going through a mental health crisis who may want to come to your court or a similar court? What do they need to do?
Well, for our court, contact our court administrator, Lewis. He'll get you all the forms. He'll get them set up, get them, if they have an attorney, he'll get them hooked up with what they need to do next. If it's not a criminal case and they're looking for a mental health warrant, order of protective custody, something like that, same thing. We have all our forms on our website. He'll get them hooked up with what they need to do and what steps they need to take to get it done.
And what if, which of course we're here at the Bar Association, we don't want to encourage people to go without attorneys, but what if someone can't afford an attorney? They could still use those forms and use your court?
So for emergency detentions, which is first off, you don't necessarily need emergency detention. That's the process for, it's to have someone evaluated if they need to be hospitalized. All it is to get them evaluated. And it's a brief hold. We're just going to get them to a hospital or a facility to see if they can get evaluated if they need to be treated. Law enforcement can do that without a warrant. So you can call and ask your law enforcement if they can send a mental health unit out and have them evaluated. You can also do that through 988 and have the crisis team go out and evaluate somebody. In our community, one of our departments will do it without a warrant, the emergency detention warrant. One of our departments will not. And so that's why we have two different ways of doing it. So you could call for a mental health unit if they don't feel it rises to it, but you still want a warrant. The forms are online and any person could come in and request it. You don't have to have an attorney. You can come in and request it.
Is there anything else you would like us to know about you or the mental health court that we've not discussed previously?
I don't think.
Okay, great. And the most importantly, I think it's important to say that if you or someone you know is suffering through a mental health crisis, you're not alone. And there is somebody who can help you. And there certainly is hope. Never lose hope.
Absolutely. And I know sometimes somebody has said, I was listening and I just was thinking, if there was a sign, then I wasn't going to do it. Well, if that's what's going on, this is your sign. Yeah. So today's not the day.
Thank you so much for coming. And as I said, if we can save one life in the Stop the Stigma initiative, then we've done our job. And I'm very grateful to you for your help in doing that.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much. And we'll see you at the next episode of Stop the Stigma.